A U.S. Pentagon report says China could amass up to 1,500 nuclear warheads by the year 2035, and that's more than triple its current estimated total. Washington citing this development as concerning for stability in the Asia-Pacific. Beijing, on its part, says it is ready for non-proliferation talks on the condition that the U.S. cut its nuclear stockpile down to China's level. And for more analysis on this, Ridzwan Rahmat joins us live from Singapore. He is a principal defense analyst at Defense and Security publication Janes. Mr. Ridzwan, welcome to the program. Now, China's nuclear expansion, give us an idea of how it has evolved over the years and where it's headed.
Yeah, so China's nuclear program or nuclear ambitions first began with the first Taiwan Strait crisis. That's when Mao Zedong himself said that, China will have a bit more credibility in terms of military might should it have an arsenal of a few nuclear weapons. So that particular program sparked it off, their nuclear program, and then it evolved from a purely self-defense kind of weapon to what it is today, whereby China has postured itself to be able to launch a preemptive strike on an enemy, even though it is posing a very conventional risk. So I think the Chinese nuclear program has evolved from a point where it was purely a defensive weapon to a point where it's now being postured as a weapon to preempt any hostile activities surrounding that particular region.
So we're seeing this shift, right, in China's nuclear posture from what some analysts are calling minimum deterrence to strategic breakout. Help us understand this shift and what's driving China's nuclear buildup.
Yeah, at the time when its nuclear program was conceived, I think the main preoccupation in China's strategic calculations was the reunification of Taiwan. And to ensure that its territorial sovereignty is not violated. The nuclear weapon was viewed at a point of time as a form of something that might guarantee its survival. You got to remember, in the 1960s, there was no guarantee that China would survive as a state. There was a lot of wars going around. The Cold War was at its peak. So China was worried that it would not exist if it does not have nuclear weapons. But today, the dynamics are very different. The Cold War has ended. I think the geostrategic calculations are a lot different. China is a bit more worried on the kind of alliances that are currently forming at its backdoor with Japan, the treaty with Australia, between Australia, UK, and the US in AUKUS. So I think this kind of shift, China sees it as a threat to its the ecosystem is currently occupying. So you got to remember when AUKUS was first mooted late in 2020, right? China viewed it as a very hostile move because it will arm Australia with nuclear submarines. And China has already criticized that move as one that violates nuclear proliferation, something that China has been emphasizing on a lot. So I think with developments like this, AUKUS, developments that have come out, especially in the last 2 years, China sees is the geostrategic environment it has been surrounded with changing very dramatically. And with that, it has to adopt a more offensive stance with regards to the use of its nuclear weapons.
And as part of China's goals, we know that Xi Jinping wants reunification with Taiwan. How does China's rapid nuclear expansion align with this goal, along with its increased military activity, especially in the Indo-Pacific region?
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you mentioned that, Shahida, because like I mentioned just now, the Taiwan Strait crisis was the first catalyst, so to speak, that sparked off the Chinese nuclear program. But I think if you were to look at military conflict across the Taiwan Strait, I don't think its nuclear weapons are meant for that today. Any reunification attempts with Taiwan will probably be carried out by conventional forces rather than nuclear forces, because it just doesn't make any strategic sense to expand nuclear weapons across such a short channel. So I think while the Taiwan crisis itself is the catalyst for China's nuclear program, I don't think it will be the tool that China will deploy in the event that it needs to reunify Taiwan by force.
On the Korean Peninsula, yesterday, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol said that China has what it takes to dissuade the North from pursuing its nuclear ambitions. Given its own expansion, do you see this as unlikely? For one, it would appear somewhat hypocritical for China.
Well, I think a lot of Western observers have, overestimated the kind of control that China has over North Korea. We've seen how the South Korean president has said that, China is the only one that can stop North Korea from carrying out its own nuclear tests. So I think the China itself has been seen as the one who has been not obeying the nuclear proliferation treaties, United Nations sanctions. So I think the right question to ask is what is China's interest, to curtail North Korea's nuclear program? I don't think there is any interest for China. The fact that the North Koreans are about to conduct their seventh nuclear test is going to complicate calculations for the Americans in that part of the world. And from China's point of view, any complications to the Americans will be in Beijing's favor, given how Beijing is very concerned about the security blocks that have formed around its territorial areas.
Appreciate your insights, Mr. Ridzwan. Thank you so much for speaking with us. That was Ridzwan Rahmat from Defense and Security publication, Janes.